We are on Skill 16, Dividing Fractions. We're on the back side of the page. The directions read, divide, write each quotient in simplest form. Now we're going to skip around and we're going to start with number 1, then we'll skip ahead to number 5, and then we'll skip ahead to number 9. We'll just do various problems. We don't need to do all of them. So the problem is 1/2 divided by 7/10. And the phrase I remind myself of when I'm dividing fractions is that we multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So instead of actually dividing, we're going to change it to multiplication. And instead of it being 7/10, we're going to use the reciprocal of that, which is 10/7. Now the reason why this is kind of cool is because multiplication of fractions is actually pretty easy. I now can choose to either multiply my numerators and denominators, or I can simplify. 10 and 2 share a factor of 2, so I'm going to simplify. 2 goes into itself once, and 2 goes into 10 5 times. And now my numerators are 1 times 5 and 1 times 7. The answer is 5/7. Alright, let's skip ahead to number 5. The problem is 9/11 divided by 3/7. Once again, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So I change it from division to multiplication, and then I change it from 3/7 to 7/3. Before I multiply, I check for things that simplify. 9 and 3 share a factor of 3. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into itself 1 time. Now my numerators are 3 times 7, which is 21. My denominators are 11 times 1, which is 11. And this is an improper fraction. Improper fractions need to be converted back to mixed numbers. 11 goes into 21. It's almost twice. If I did 2 times 11, it'd be 22. So I'm just 1 away from 2 wholes. So it's 1 whole. 1 times 11 is 11, plus 10. That's how many I have left. And my denominator stays as 11. The answer is 1 and 10/11. Okay, skipping ahead to number 9. 11/12 divided by 1/4. Multiply by the reciprocal. Check to see if anything simplifies. 4 and 12 share a factor of 4. 4 goes into itself once. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 11 times 1 is 11. 3 times 1 is 3. 11/3 is an improper fraction. 3 goes into 11 3 whole times. 3 times 3 is 9. Plus 2 would make 11. Denominator remains. The answer, 3 and 2/3. So I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to numbers 19 and 20, the word problems. And part of what makes this just a bit challenging is while I can see the fractions, it doesn't directly tell me in which order to set this up. If you say to yourself, well, it doesn't really matter if I set this up in the wrong order. Well, let's think about it this way. The rule for dividing fractions, the strategy for dividing fractions, is to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Well, if you have to multiply specifically by the reciprocal of the second fraction, that means you have to put the fractions in the correct order. So we're going to read this together and try to decide in which order to set this up. The question is, a soup recipe calls for 3/8 of a cup of olive oil. 1 tablespoon is equal to 1/16 of a cup. How many tablespoons of olive oil are needed to make the soup? Now, like I said before, it doesn't directly tell you in which order to set this up. There is a bit of a hint. This sentence right here, how many tablespoons of olive oil? And while it doesn't directly say this, it kind of implies how many tablespoons of olive oil would go into 3/8 of a cup of olive oil. In other words, what you're supposed to do on this is take 3/8 and divide by 1/16. Once I have this set up in the correct order, 3/8 divided by 1/16, I'm going to use the same rules as I did before. I'm going to go ahead and move this over so I can make sure I'm showing my work on what the video captures. I'm going to use the same rules as what I did before, as in multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/16, which is 16/1. the same thing I've been doing. I check for simplification. 16 and 8 share a factor of 8. 8 goes into itself once. 8 goes into 16 twice. Now I have 3 times 2 over 1 times 1. 3 times 2 is 6. And anything over 1 is just a whole number, so it's going to be just 6. The question says how many tablespoons are needed. So the answer is 6 tablespoons. TBLS. Let's go ahead and try number 20. 20 says a sheet of poster board is 1/24 inches thick. How many sheets of this poster board are needed to make a stack 3/4 inches high? So we know that ultimately the stack's going to be 3/4 high. So that means this one's going to be set up backward from the last one. We take the second term, 3/4, divide that by 1/24. So it's just kind of a reminder. The book and the worksheet, they don't have any obligation to give you the numbers in the correct order. You have to read and interpret and then put them in the correct order. If you set this up, number 20 is 3/4 divided by 1/24, you will get it correct. As long as you remember to multiply by the reciprocal. 24 over 1. Check for simplification. 4 and 24 share a factor of 4. 4 goes into itself once. 4 goes into 24 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Over 1 is 18. Reread the question. It says how many sheets of poster board? The answer is 18 sheets of poster board.